It's wonderful for all of us to be sitting here together, boys and girls of all different races, religions, and backgrounds. However, ladies, walking into this classroom today, you probably didn't give a second thought about how schools teach history. We have world history, U.S. history, and U.S. government, yet somehow call women's history studies an elective. Both women and their history are so vastly underappreciated that I will not be surprised if you have never heard the stories I will now tell you. Today, I will be exploring the illustrious history of women, specifically female spies, and the story of how women and girls, as secret agents, throughout history have not only fought for their country, but rights to be regarded in the same light as men. When I say undercover agent, you're probably thinking of Mission Impossible. You're thinking modern weapons and fast cars and supermodels. You're probably also mostly thinking of male spies like James Bond, Alex Rider, or Jason Bourne. However, the reality of this job is the exact opposite. At least it was way back in the 1800s, where Harriet Tubman, an African-American abolitionist and humanitarian, first served as a Union spy during the Civil War. Born into slavery, Tubman escaped and made some 13 missions to rescue approximately 70 enslaved family and friends, using the network of anti-slavery activists and safe houses known as the Underground Railroad. She also worked side by side with Union men as a spy later on during the Union War. In one of her most dramatic and dangerous missions, Harriet helped Colonel James Montgomery plan a raid to free slaves from plantations along the Combahee River in South Carolina. One June morning, 3 gunboats carrying several hundred male soldiers along with Harriet Tubman set out on their mission. Tubman had gathered key information about the Confederate positions. She knew where they were hiding along the shore. She also found out where they had placed barrels filled with gunpowder in the water. Thanks to her help, that day they freed about 750 slaves, men, women, children, and babies. And guess what? Did not lose one soldier in the attack. Later that year, Tubman became the first woman to lead an armed assault during the Civil War. Now let's fast forward 100 years to World War II to meet Nancy Wake, a British agent during the later part of World War II. She became one of the Allies' most decorated servicewomen of war. When the Nazis invaded France, the country she was living in, she became a fighter for the French resistance and joined an escape network. She was so sneaky, so cunning and clever, the Gestapo nicknamed her the White Mouse and later named her the most wanted woman alive, with a 5 million franc bounty on her head. In April 1944, the 7,000 underground fighters she was in charge of fought 22,000 Nazis, causing 1,400 casualties, only 100 being bears. Heck, she was so badass, she once killed a Nazi guard with her bare hands to prevent him from raising an alarm. She was later awarded with the United States Presidential Medal of Freedom for her efforts. There are dozens of more stories like this. This list I have here in my hand, these are 48 more SOE, or Special Operation Executive Agents, each with their own stories, not to mention their own battles and triumphs. I admit, reading these, I never could have been as outrageously brave as they were. Reading their stories, I found it difficult to imagine how they could leave home and the people they loved behind and knew they might never come back, suffering agonizing deaths by torture instead. But they did it anyway. What about you guys? Do these stories surprise you? Do they impress you? They should, because they are unsung songs of victory, patriotism, and feminism. Maybe if we were taught more about the cunning, sly women of war, and more people knew these stories, they would realize that girls are independent, capable of anything, and their history is worth knowing as well.